So let's walk through the process of taking this program that just has two simple transactions in it and turning it into arrays. And I'll just use a little block comment here to basically say, ignore all that code. So the first bit here was that we have two transactions that are both doubles. So instead of having two individual doubles, we'll create a double array, and we'll call it transactions. Transactions plural because there's multiple of them. And we'll set it equal to a new double array with two elements in it. So notice two transactions, two in the bracket on the right-hand side here. So this initializes an array full of zeros. So transaction at index 0 would be 0, and the transaction at index 1 would also be 0. So remember, we can use the assignment syntax to update the array. So just like before we said transaction 1 equals 15.0, we can say for this, transactions 0 equals 15.0. Remember, we have these 0 indexes here. And all we do to put one double in is put these brackets. And we can do the same thing for the negative 30.75. And remember to put that at index 1. So now we've done the same work as here, actually with a couple more lines, and we'll see how to make this a bit shorter in a second. But where it becomes a little nicer is that instead of having to individually make a line of code for every transaction, we can use a loop. Remember the pattern we introduced for how to work with arrays. We can have a for loop, and we can have an index initialized to 0, work until that index is up to the length of the transaction array, and increment it normally. Then in here, we have the ability to look at a single transaction. So what that transaction is transactions I, right? The first time the loop goes around, I is 0, which means we'll get transaction 0. The second time it goes around, we'll get transactions 1, which will get us this negative 30.75. So we can use transactions I. And instead of having to store each one individually, we can actually just use something like this. For every single item in the transactions array, we want to add it to the balance. So what have we gained here? If we want to make more transactions, we can say, make that a 3-element double array, and maybe it's payday, and you got $150.33. We add that into the balance here, we don't have to edit anything. Oh, make that a 2. We don't have to edit anything. This loop, because the length increased, will now automatically work with this new transaction. It makes our life a lot easier. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up the older version. And here we can see a program coming together around arrays.